Don't breathe. Don't blink. What you're about to hear became the one story a man could no longer outrun. Andrew Collins slipped his key into the front door just after sunrise, suitcase in hand, no warning to the house. He wanted the truth of the place when no one staged it to please him. From the hallway came a low melody, and two small laughs that tugged at the center of his chest. Keisha Bennett knelt on the rug with his twins, Ethan and Sophie. A circle of cereal boxes and wooden spoons became towers and bridges. But it wasn't the castle that froze Andrew in the doorway. It was what Keisha was doing with his children. Her hands moved in slow, careful patterns, fingers drawing meaning in the air. Ethan copied, brow bent in attention. Sophie tried and giggled when she got it wrong. With each sign, Keisha said the word out loud, then breathed deep, pressing a hand to her heart. Andrew had learned sign language only from a laminated card on an airplane. He knew therapy from invoices. He knew his children from rushed breakfasts. He did not know this language of steady hands. Keisha looked up. Surprise flickered, then settled. "Morning, Mr. Collins." "I came home early," he said. "Figured it was time." Sophie toddled over and lifted her arms. He picked her up and felt how small the world could become and still be perfect. Ethan watched, wary and curious. "What are you doing?" Andrew asked. "Regulation game," Keisha said softly. "A little sign, a little breath. It helps them tell us what's happening inside when the outside gets loud." "Do they need that?" She nodded. "Everyone does, but yes, especially now." It hadn't been 6 months since the accident took Rachel, the kind of sentence that never sounded true no matter how many times people said it. Andrew had buried his grief in travel, in meetings, in silence. He hired Keisha because the agency called her steady. He hadn't expected fluency in repair. "Can I watch?" he asked. "You can join," Keisha said, and patted the rug. He sat on the floor. Keisha guided Ethan's hands into the sign for more, then helped Sophie shape please. When the blender in the kitchen startled Sophie, Keisha pressed 2 fingers to her own lips, then to Sophie's chest, counting a breath. The fear loosened its grip like a knot being untied. "Where did you learn this?" Andrew asked. "My aunt ran a daycare," Keisha said. "I trained later. Some classes, lots from families who were trying their best under impossible weather." By 8, the twins had eaten toast and banana coins, and the cereal castle had become a parade of crumbs. Keisha cleaned without erasing joy. The whiteboard near the fridge held blocks of color with little icons: nap cloud, snack sun, outside leaf, book chair. "There's a rhythm," she said. "We keep it flexible, but anchors help." Andrew had lived by calendars his entire life, and yet this was the first one that felt like a covenant instead of a cage. When the twins went down for a nap, Keisha made tea. Andrew stood with his favorite mug, a guest in his own kitchen. "I should have called," he said. "I'm glad you didn't," she answered. "Surprises tell the truth. What you saw isn't a secret. It's just what they need." "I didn't know they needed it." "You've been surviving," she said. "Surviving counts. But surviving sometimes looks like leaving the room when the crying starts because it feels like drowning. I want to help you stay. Tell me how." "Start simple," Keisha said. "Claim one routine every day you're home. Learn 5 signs. Build a small ritual that's yours with them, nothing grand, just something true. And we tell the truth when it hurts." At 10, Sophie woke in a tumble of hair and smiles. Ethan followed, serious and soft. They went outside to blow bubbles that kept coming. Andrew learned the sign for bubble and daddy, which felt like a vow. When Ethan tripped and skinned a knee, Andrew's first instinct was to fix. Keisha's was to witness. "Name it," she coached. "Knee," Andrew said, voice unsteady. "Hurt knee." "You're safe." I'm here. Ethan cried, less like an alarm and more like a song winding down. After lunch, Keisha opened a small box Andrew hadn't seen. Inside were photos: Rachel laughing, Rachel holding newborns, Rachel asleep with both babies sprawled across her. The sight of her felt like opening a door he had bricked over and finding a garden still growing. "Do you show them these?" he whispered. "Every day," Keisha said. "So love doesn't feel like a stranger." Clouds shouldered the afternoon and thunder rolled once like a warning. Both twins startled and turned toward Keisha. Andrew saw it and felt heat, jealousy edged in shame, then something else, like a map unfolding. "Together," Keisha said, inviting him to sit. She turned the storm into a counting game, clapping between flash and rumble, letting fear be named and then danced through. It wasn't heroics, just the daily courage that keeps love from leaving the room. Evening softened the walls. The twins soaked in bath bubbles, then curled into pajamas. Andrew read a bored book, stumbling over voices, finding a smile that didn't feel borrowed. When the house quieted, Keisha gathered her things. Andrew walked her to the hall. "I came home expecting to catch shortcuts," he said. "Instead I watched the only part of this house running right. And it wasn't me." "It can be," she said. Before he could answer, Ethan's monitor crackled. "Not crying," words, newly formed and tender. Ethan murmured. Then softer, "Mama." Andrew's breath hitched. He looked at Keisha. "We can meet that," she said. "But we have to do it honest." He nodded, throat tight. "Tomorrow." Keisha hesitated, then lifted the small box with the photos and, beneath them, a sealed envelope with his name in Rachel's handwriting. "She gave me this," Keisha said. "She asked me to hold it until you were really home. Not just your body, your attention." Andrew took the envelope like a fragile thing that could still change everything. He didn't open it. "Tomorrow," he repeated, and set it on the kitchen table where he would have to face it with daylight. That night, in the doorway of the nursery, he listened to his children breathe. He pressed his palm against the wood and realized the only door that had ever mattered was this one. He whispered to the dark. "I'm staying, for good." The next morning sunlight spilled across the kitchen tiles, painting them gold. Andrew sat at the table, the unopened envelope still lying in front of him. His coffee cooled untouched. His children's chatter came through the baby monitor, alive and real, pulling him back from the whirlpool of grief the envelope threatened to open. Keisha appeared in the doorway, carrying Sophie on her hip and holding Ethan's hand. "They're ready for breakfast," she said, her tone casual, but her eyes flicked to the letter. She hadn't cried last night and she didn't now. She simply set Sophie in her chair, buckled Ethan into his, and began laying out fruit and toast like it was any ordinary morning. Andrew forced himself to join the routine. He peeled bananas into tiny pieces, placed them in bowls, and tried to mimic the signs he had learned yesterday. "More," he signed, slowly. Ethan's face brightened. Sophie giggled, clapping her hands together. It wasn't much, but the connection was real. As the twins ate, Keisha leaned against the counter. "You're different already," she said. "Different?" "You're here," she replied. "Not halfway out the door." Andrew nodded, glancing again at the letter. His chest ached, but this time he didn't flee from it. After breakfast, Keisha guided them into the backyard for playtime. Ethan discovered the joy of running through the damp grass while Sophie picked up leaves like treasures. Andrew followed, his expensive shoes sinking into the mud, and for once he didn't care. The children shrieked with laughter, and Andrew realized he couldn't remember the last time he had laughed like that himself. Mid-morning brought a challenge. Andrew's phone buzzed with an urgent message from his assistant, a board member demanding an explanation for his absence. Old reflexes urged him to grab his laptop, lock himself in his office, and drown in spreadsheets. But Ethan tugged at his sleeve, tiny fingers signing again. Andrew looked down at his son and then at Keisha, who stood quietly watching. "This is the meeting I can't miss," he whispered. He put the phone aside and joined the twins on the blanket, stacking blocks into towers that Sophie toppled with delight. For the first time in years, Andrew chose presence over pressure. Later that afternoon, the front door opened again without warning. His sister, Caroline, marched in carrying a stack of papers. She had always been sharp, brisk, the one to point out what others ignored. "Andrew, we need to talk," she said, setting the papers on the counter. "The company's nervous. Investors are asking questions. And what's this I hear about you ignoring calls?" Andrew braced himself, but before he could answer, Caroline's eyes darted toward Keisha, who was reading to Sophie on the couch. Her lips tightened. "And who exactly is making all these developmental decisions for the children? Occupational therapy? Sign language? Did you even clear this with a specialist?" Keisha's back stiffened. She didn't respond, only kept reading to Sophie in her calm, even voice. Andrew felt a flash of anger, sharp and protective. "She's not just making decisions. She's giving them stability. She's giving me a way back to them." Caroline frowned. "Tom, you can't just let." "Stop," Andrew interrupted. "Don't call me Tom, and don't pretend you know what's happening here. Keisha has given these children something I didn't even know they needed. She's not replacing anyone. She's helping me step up. If the board has questions, tell them the truth, I'm not abandoning my family again." Caroline stared at him, stunned by his defiance. For once, Andrew didn't waver. Finally, she sighed and gathered her papers. "Fine. Just, don't let your guard down. People will talk." She left, the slam of the door echoing through the house. Andrew sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. Keisha looked at him steadily. "You did right," she said simply. "Truth is always heavier at first, but lighter after." Her words anchored him. That evening, when the twins napped, Andrew finally reached for the envelope. His hands trembled as he slid a finger under the flap. Inside was a letter written in Rachel's looping handwriting. "My love," it began. "If you're reading this, then the world has already broken in a way we prayed it never would. I need you to hear me, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. Ethan and Sophie won't remember the deals you closed. They'll remember your voice at bedtime, your hands steadying them when they're scared. Promise me you'll show up. Even broken. Even tired. Especially then. Love doesn't need polish. It needs practice." Tears blurred the words. Andrew pressed the letter to his chest. Keisha had been right, he hadn't been home, not really. But Rachel's words gave him permission to try, even clumsily. When the twins woke, Andrew began his own ritual. He carried them to the big armchair, one on each knee, and read aloud from their favorite picture book. His voice wavered at first, but as Ethan leaned against his chest and Sophie traced the pictures with her tiny finger, something inside him shifted. He wasn't pretending anymore. Days became weeks. Andrew built new patterns, morning signs, backyard walks, memory minutes with old photographs. He even brought Miriam, Rachel's mother, into the rhythm. She arrived every Friday with a pan of brownies or lemon bars, teaching the twins how to stir batter and lick spoons. The kitchen filled with laughter again, and even the shadows of grief seemed to soften. One Saturday, Andrew took the twins to the public library for story hour. Keisha had suggested it, saying children needed more than walls and routines, they needed community. Andrew carried Ethan on his shoulders and held Sophie's hand as they walked in. Parents glanced up, surprised to see him there instead of in some glossy magazine spread about boardrooms and business deals. After the story, Keisha quietly gathered a few parents around. "We're starting a parent circle," she explained. "Free. No shame, no judgment. Just a place to share what works, what doesn't, and to remind each other we're not alone. Andrew stood beside her, adding, "I'll cover the costs. Space, snacks, books. Consider it my way of apologizing for all the times I thought money was the answer when it wasn't." The parents smiled, grateful. Some signed up on the spot. Andrew felt proud, not for being a billionaire, but for being useful. That night, as he tucked Ethan and Sophie into bed, Ethan whispered, "Daddy, more." Sophie added, "Please." Andrew smiled, heart full. "More will come," he promised softly. "Always more." He kissed their foreheads, turned off the light, and stepped into the hallway where Keisha waited. "You're different now," she said. Andrew nodded. "I'm finally home." And for the first time since Rachel's accident, the house no longer felt like a monument to loss. It felt alive. It felt like hope.